So my last video when I came back to YouTube, I mentioned there's some life changes that have happened to me. I got a new job and that job is in the States. So in this video, I'm going to talk about why I'm deciding to leave Canada for a job in the States. Most of the reasons for moving to the States is really a financial decision. So if you're an engineer working in Canada and perhaps looking to go to the States, then stick around and I'll give you my thought process of the pros and the cons of moving to the US. So starting off with the pros, the first thing is when you move to the States, most states actually have lower income tax. The state where I'm going to is California, and in California, taxes actually tend to be on the higher end compared to other states. But if we compare the tax rates of California versus where I am in Ontario, Ontario beats California in terms of tax rates. Another thing is when you hear about healthcare in Canada versus healthcare in the States, I always hear that healthcare is a lot quicker in the States, especially if you have benefits or have the money to pay up. Here in Canada, it takes forever to get appointments. For example, take my old doctor. I left him because it was impossible to reach him by phone. You literally would have to call at 9 a.m. when the office opened, and there's a half-hour window when he would answer. Or the other way to book an appointment is drop into the office. Then your appointment's about 3 weeks out. I hear from friends in the States, booking an appointment's very easy and you can get those appointments very quickly. And don't get me started on specialists. If you want to see a specialist here in Canada, you're probably on a wait list for 3 to 8 months. That was the case with my father as well as my sister-in-law. In the States, if you pay to see a specialist, it's going to be much quicker than that. However, for me, my company does offer really good health insurance and it's pretty much comprehensive. So for that reason, I'm not too worried about the healthcare costs. On top of being young, I should probably have very minimal healthcare costs there. The second reason for moving to the States is the weather. If you guys are here in Ontario, you'll know that the winters here can get pretty cold, like that one week with -22 weather. And in the summers, it gets hot as well. It can go up to 30 degrees with 100% humidity. In California, you get a pretty mild weather in the winter, so I was down there last week, and the weather was around anywhere from 6 degrees all the way to 20 degrees. At nights, you're seeing the single digits, and during the day, the weather is in the teens. And during the summer, you're probably going to see somewhere between 25 to 30 degrees. However, it's dry heat. So it's not that bloody humid summer where you can't even go outside because you're just sweating profusely. Reason number 3 for moving to California is better career growth. So since I started working for this American company about 4 months ago, I noticed there's quite a difference in terms of how people think and just the level of thinking that people have there. Management, as well as those who are senior in the company, they're just very high-level thinkers. They constantly have new ideas and they have huge ambitions for the business. They're able to sell their investment ideas to investors and get a large sum of money and execute on that. In Canada, it feels like the environment here for technology is a bit more timid. Everyone's a bit more conservative here, they don't want to spend cash, as well as they don't quite know how to tell the story of their company. Workers tend to be a bit more relaxed about the job, just wanting to work 9 to 5, but down there, it's a hustle culture. And the fact that I moved from a 300 company that's about a Series B down to a Series A company with 15 people, I definitely have gotten more responsibility over the past 4 months. And with responsibility comes a lot more growth for me as an engineer, and I'm able to make decisions that have huge impacts on the business. So I feel like this is a better decision for me to jump into the startup life and get a lot more experience and exposure to responsibility, and that should lead to higher paychecks down the road, even if I decide to come back to Canada. For me to stay at my old company, I just didn't really see a quick path to career growth there. It'd probably take about 3 to 4 years for me to get some sort of manager position, if that was even possible, depending on if people left. Not to mention the pay in California, especially the Silicon Valley area, is just astronomically higher. For example, in my previous job, I was making around $100,000, but in my current role, I'm basically making double that. Reason number 4 for moving to the States is that your shopping experience is so much better in the States. First of all, shipping is a lot cheaper from everywhere. You probably get charged half the shipping fee or free shipping most of the times. If you go to Amazon, you can see the selection there is a lot wider down in the States versus here in Canada. And on the financial side, when you're investing, they get all the cool new technology. So for example, zero fee investing. One of the first brokerages to roll that out was Robinhood. I think that was back in 2016 or so. Canada, on the other hand, we got our first zero fee commission trading platform in around 2020 when Wealthsimple launched. And reason number 5 is there's lower taxes on all your goods and services. Here in Canada, we pay a 13% premium on all of our goods and services, which is a real downer. Over in California, it's not that much better, but it's around 8 or 9%. But every percentage point counts. Before moving on, let's talk about today's video sponsor, which is Cantech Letter. They have a completely free newsletter and they don't have any paid content on their site. They're one of my favorite sites for keeping up with small cap tech stocks in Canada. The content is focused on the Canadian markets and tends to be about small cap tech stocks like I talked about, as well as they cover large cap tech stocks. But they don't give you that generic news that you get from Yahoo Finance. They actually interview analysts and give their own take on stocks. So if you're a small cap investor or one who likes to dig into up and coming companies, then I would highly recommend that you sign up for the newsletter, and it's completely free like I said before. Now moving on to the cons about moving down to America. Con number one is needing health insurance. In health insurance, not everything is free. I think there's a copay of around $10 every time you go to your doctor's, versus here in Canada, it's completely free. But then again, I've been to the doctor about once in the past 2 years. The second con about moving to America right now is just the headache when it comes to finances. So first, I gotta figure out what to do with my stocks. And for the time being, my plan is to sell all my stocks because it's not worth trying to keep them and port them over. I just think it's too much of a headache to go through that, and I can incur some large costs if I make a mistake. And if I want to not make a mistake, I've got to go to an accountant. And the last accountant I saw charged me $500 for an hour and a half. On top of investments, I've got a house right now which I'm trying to rent out. And the headache with trying to rent out a house while being a resident in America is needing to fill out certain tax forms and possibly need to pay that bloody accountant a fee to keep track of my income. The fact that I'm a US resident means that I'll be taxed possibly on my rental income in Canada. And on top of that, I think the Canadian government will want their share of taxes as well. I might be wrong on that, and this is not tax advice, but this is what I've kind of gathered so far from reading. So as you can see right now, it's quite a bit of a headache because I don't have all my ducks in a row and figured out how renting a home while living in America works from a tax perspective. And on the visa situation, another crummy thing about the visa that I'm on is the fact that my wife can't work. So me taking this new position, although it's double my income, we've gone down to a single income family. So hopefully in the future, she'll be able to figure out something to do and maybe get her own visa, or have to apply for a more extensive visa called the H-1B rather than the TN visa that I'm on right now. The H-1B will allow her to work, but until we get that, we're going to be down to a single income. The third con about moving to the States, especially the Bay Area, is the cost of living. There's other areas in the States where cost of living is lower than here in Canada, but in the Bay Area, things are especially high. Rent prices are ridiculously high over there. A 2-bedroom here that's newly renovated or maybe built in the past 5 years will run you around $2,500 if it's a 1,000 square foot apartment. However, if you go to the Bay Area and you're looking for the exact same thing, you're paying $4,000 US. So if we convert the $2,500 to US dollars, you're probably talking about $1,800. So rent is double or more than double down there in California versus here in Canada. If we talk about eating out in California is bloody expensive. So when I was down there last week, I got a poke bowl, a regular size, which is fairly small. For me, as like a 6 foot tall person, I probably need 2 of these poke bowls. It ran me about $15.50 USD for this regular size poke bowl, and if I need 2 of them to get full, that's about $31. Now to compare poke bowl here in Waterloo versus the Bay Area, in Waterloo, poke bowl will run you around $16.50, and the poke bowl here is even bigger than the one down there. So you can see with higher salaries comes a higher cost of living. Now some of you who are watching this video might be considering moving to the Bay Area, and I still think despite the higher cost of living down there, it's worth going to. So one thing I didn't mention about my salary is that it also came with an equity portion. And that equity portion is substantially bigger than the equity that I received from my previous tech company here in Waterloo. So to put it into perspective, the equity that I received from a Canadian company here in Waterloo, I got about $8,000 worth of options. Now the company was worth somewhere around the $200 to $300 million mark. And if they went IPO, let's say at $1 billion, then my 8,000 would effectively triple or quadruple. So we're talking 8,000 turning into, let's say, 32,000. My net gain from that would have been $24,000. Now the equity that I got from this other company in the Bay Area, which I'm working for right now let's just say if the company does very well and they IPO for $1 billion, I'm probably set for life. But obviously, a lot of startups fail out there, so I'm not going to count on my equity vesting and being worth something, because who knows, one day it might not be. Let me know in the comments down below if any of you are considering moving down to the Bay Area for jobs or whatnot, or if you have questions about moving down there. I'd be happy to answer those. If you're interested in general personal finance, well, that's what my channel is about, so feel free to subscribe down below. It's completely free.